Sweet, fresh meat.
The familiar sound of school bells ring out as kids go back to the classroom. Given the variety of slasher films that take place in high school, what better way to transition our series out of summer than going into the classroom with some bloody hijinks? Join us as we take a look at some real slashers. We had plenty of options when it came to slashers in a school setting, but like a virgin on prom night, the first time must be special. At least, that's what we tell ourselves. So to avoid the eventual disappointment, we're diving into the world of Prom Night.
The killer is coming. The killer's gonna get you.
At its core, Prom Night is a mystery. Who is terrorizing these high schoolers and why do they want them dead? Sure, if you stop and think for even a second, chances are pretty good that you'll figure out who's doing all of this. But that doesn't mean it's not a fun journey getting there. So let's break it down. Like most slashers, we have an opening kill. But that's where the similarities end. The opening kill here is kind of disturbing. Instead of some intense stalking scene where we see a would-be victim finally getting what's coming to them, we get introduced to this group of children. Jude, Kelly, Wendy, and Nick. They're playing hide and seek in an old abandoned convent. Little Robin Hammond tries to join the game, but the kids won't let her, instead teasing her and shouting. They back her into a corner and she accidentally falls through a window and to her death. The children make a pact to never tell anyone what happened and keep the whole thing a secret. Unfortunately, someone else saw. Now, killing off an 11-year-old at the beginning is ballsy as hell and sets the tone early that this film is not messing around. All grown up, the kids are now in high school and are ready to celebrate prom. And they quickly find out that their secret isn't quite as secret as they hoped it would be. Does this sound familiar? Maybe because I Know What You Did Last Summer completely ripped off the concept. We follow the Hammond family dealing with their grief. Mr. Hammond, played by Leslie Nielsen, is the school principal. This is prior to his Airplane days, though that film would release the same year as Prom Night. But it's still a little weird to see him in a serious role, especially when you hear how he was on set.
He used to have this rubber fart machine that he would have around with him all the time on set.
Oh, Leslie, never change. As far as the characters, most are pretty interchangeable, but there are a few that we need to talk about individually. Jamie Lee Curtis plays Kimberly Hammond, and she is just perfection in this. There's a reason she's considered the Scream Queen. While her Laurie Strode character is shy and a bit nerdy, Kim is a likable prom queen. Well, likable to the viewer at least. Because this girl hates her. Like, really hates her. But we'll get into that shortly. They do a good job of adding layers to Kim, even with this subtle reaction to her mother not knowing where her lipstick is. It feels like such an insignificant moment, yet it tells us so much. Kim's been through this with her mom before. It's all just a part of her life. It's not the perfect home life the parents in slashers often represent. This family is clearly very messed up from losing one of their own. Alex Hammond, who is actually fraternal twins with Robin, is absurdly protective of Kim. He always seems to be keeping an eye out for her. I mean, he's ready to throw down for her at any point, which is kind of sweet. If not a little obvious. Then we've got the main antagonist of the movie. Other than the killer, of course. Wendy. Wendy hates Kim because she's going to prom with Wendy's ex-boyfriend Nick, and she's incredibly jealous. So jealous, in fact, that she uses this loser to sabotage Kim and Nick. While most slashers tend to stay very neutral with its cinematography, Prom Night features a bevy of beautiful shots. It makes the film feel like a step up from other basic slashers of the era, especially when it comes to this crazy disco set piece towards the end. That's right, there's a full-blown disco dance scene in this, and it goes on for so long. As a matter of fact, 3 minutes and 18 seconds are spent just on this disco dance. At a certain point, you start to question whether they wanted to be the next Halloween or the next Saturday Night Fever. Speaking of disco, this sequence got a little bit complicated when the producers used popular disco songs when filming. When they later went to inquire about licensing out the rights, just one of the songs would have cost them $800,000, over half the budget of the film. Because of this, composer Paul Zaza had to create original disco music that sounded similar enough to the songs, but not enough that they would get sued. Unfortunately, after the film's release, they were sued, but it was resolved with a small sum out of court. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, the beginning of the film is very slow. It takes quite a while for things to get going as we get introduced to all of the characters. The director really takes his time with each scene, and it can be a little frustrating if you're not used to this kind of pacing. Thankfully, the film really picks up once we arrive at the prom. Disco and all. The killer targets all 4 of the grown-up assailants at the dance and stalks them throughout the high school. They die in fairly basic ways, but that doesn't take away from the moments because they're often too sudden and hard-hitting, especially the decapitation, which may just be the most memorable shot of the whole movie. When we finally arrive at the ending, our heroine Kim is face to face with the killer. She looks at him in the eyes and recognizes them. They stare at each other a moment before the killer stumbles out of the school in a daze towards the distraught students. Kim screams at them not to kill him as she runs to him. He collapses in her arms and she removes his mask only to reveal that it's her brother Alex, out for revenge on the kids that killed their sister. The film awkwardly ends and we're left going, holy hell. Nowadays, films often give you a little bit of a buffer with the twist ending so that you can properly digest it. But here, nope, it's like they ran out of money on the final shot. Given the quality of the twist, it's a little disappointing that it's not handled slightly better. But hey, it's still fun.
They killed her. Robin.
Revenge is a tale as old as time. So the fact that revenge is the killer's main motivating factor here makes him pretty easy to understand. Did you have something to do with Robin's death? Then you're going to die. He's dressed in all black with a ski mask covering his face. He's never really shot to be able to tell exactly who he is, but it's clear from the get-go that this is clearly a man. He essentially uses 2 weapons during the duration, a piece of glass from a broken mirror and his handy axe. As far as the actual kills go, we don't see a whole bunch on camera. This movie was very low budget and didn't have some effects maestro like Tom Savini in charge, so things were done very minimally. That doesn't mean they aren't great though. This massive buildup with Wendy being chased by the killer is this great cat and mouse scenario. She ends up blowing it by screaming at the sight of one of her dead classmates. This leads to a brutal chop to camera, followed by darkness and... Yeah, so despite there not being any blood during the scene itself, sometimes the imagination does wonders. But that doesn't mean the entire film is without its gore though. The decapitation towards the end is enough to even make Mrs. Voorhees blush. You get to see full impact as the axe drives into his neck and the head flies off like a basketball. The head rolls out onto the runway and the screams start. The head in the floor effect is great, and they know it, focusing on it for a while. The dummy head doesn't get quite as much attention. Wonder why. Then of course, there's the reveal that the killer is in fact Alex Hammond, Kim's brother and witness to the events at the beginning. It's a fun twist, but it's one that you can see coming a mile away if you think about it. We know that Robin is the sister of Alex and Kim, so the revenge aspect makes sense. Then you add the fact that we can never account for Alex's whereabouts during the killings. It's like they don't even make an effort to trick you. But this is both good and bad, because sometimes these whodunits take it a little too far, with the killer seemingly being 2 places at once. So, at least they didn't go down that path.
You like?
You look almost like a woman.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
We've got Jamie Lee Curtis looking like an absolute dime piece in every scene. She uses confidence in every moment that she's on screen, and that just screams sexy. Her friends Vicky and Jude are cute and get their moments to look good, but it's hard not to focus on the charismatic Jamie Lee. We even get sleazy Lou admiring some girls for the viewer's entertainment. Wendy, despite her resting bitch face, is clearly attractive, but it's when she enters with her red dress at prom that every head turns. This red dress is apparently enough to even steal Nick away from Kim, if only briefly. And can you blame him? But the real star here is Kelly, played by Mary Beth Rubens. Kelly is the face of an angel and a rocking bod. She's worried she'll lose her boyfriend if she doesn't have sex with him. They fool around in the locker room and we get to see even more of Kelly. Unfortunately for her boyfriend Drew, she's still not ready to do the deed, and he's pissed. So pissed that he leaves her ass. Poor Kelly. As far as the guys, prom king Nick is often looking dapper. In fact, if you're into guys in suits and tuxedos, then you're going to be a happy camper, because the film is full of them. Not to mention if you're into older dudes. If you're attracted to the more scuzzy side of things, Lou has you covered. You may just have to look past the fact that he gets kicked out of school for assaulting Kim during lunch. Not exactly a model citizen. But we don't kink shame here at JoBlo.
I'll remember this night for the rest of my life.
Of course.
There are some really cool sequences that we could look at in this film. The long cat and mouse chase between the killer and Wendy, the decapitation towards the end followed by the fight. But there's one scene that just builds up on itself and feels wholly unique: the van scene. Before we can discuss this scene in its entirety, we must first establish the characters. This is Kim's friend Jude. She seems nice enough with her limited screen time, but the real star of the show, and the coolest guy in the movie, is Seymour.
They call me Slick.
In any other movie, Slick is the butt of the jokes. He's a little short, he's a little chubby, and he's a little off. But here, all of that works to his advantage, and he comes across as effortlessly cool. Not to mention that the only reason the two are going to prom together anyway is by pure happenstance. It's no surprise when the two of them ditch prom to go have sex in the back of Slick's van. After a short session in the back of the van, they decide to have sex outside again. But outside the van just isn't good enough, and they go for a stroll down to the bluffs. Despite going all the way to have sex on the bluffs, Slick isn't into it and wants to go back and smoke a joint, which means they go all the way back to the van. It's kind of funny because the scene is clearly meant to add tension of when is the killer going to strike. Yet they don't really tease anything happening. Not even a close call. It mostly feels like the killer is just being a creep, which results in a feeling of, wait, why didn't we just watch that? It's that kind of schlock that I love with early slashers. Back in the van, Slick continues to be too cool for school with a huge book full of joints that he lights up. But suddenly the van door opens and Jude falls back and the killer plunges the broken mirror deep into her neck. This leads to a scuffle between Slick and the killer. The way that these two struggle feels so damn real that I question just how much of this was choreographed. It seems the two were just given the direction of go at it, and go at it they did. Slick drives like a madman and you almost think he's going to escape. Until you remember he can't see a damn thing because of his glasses being smashed earlier. And on cue, he drives off a cliff. The massive explosion is both over the top and entirely unexpected given the rather short fall. It's a great button on the scene. Hilariously enough, the director revealed in the Blu-ray audio commentary that the van used was stolen by the stunt coordinator. So if you lost your van back in 1979, I think I might know where it is.
Can you come out to play tonight? I'll see you at the prom.
Prom Night released in 1980 in select cities and was an immediate success. Not difficult given its measly $1.5 million budget, but still. By the end of its theatrical run, the film was able to bring in $14.8 million domestically. Like most slashers, critics took to bashing the film, often comparing it negatively to both Halloween and Carrie. It was nominated for a Genie Award for both film editing and Best Performance by a Foreign Actress for Jamie Lee Curtis. Unfortunately, it didn't take home either, and the Genies themselves were shuttered in 2012. Clearly, there was an audience for Prom Night because 3 sequels were released, each one weirder than the last. In fact, the only thing that all of them have in common is the fact that they all take place at Hamilton High. Oh, and this line.
It's not who you go with, honey. It's who takes you home.
And the fact that this guy, Brock Simpson, is in all 4 movies, despite not playing the same role in any of them. Again, it's a weird series. While most of the actors didn't move on to much else, obviously both Jamie Lee Curtis and Leslie Nielsen had extremely successful careers. Director Paul Lynch went on to mostly work in TV, directing 9 episodes of The Twilight Zone. Resident bitch Wendy, played by Anne Marie Taylor, went on to marry Michael Crichton and co-write 1996's Twister. During the 2000 slasher remake craze, Prom Night was selected and ended up proving why being more stylish isn't necessarily better, particularly when your movie looks like a music video. While Prom Night may have withered into the background, its legacy is as present as ever. If there's any franchise that could use a fresh coat of paint, it's this one. So the next time you're wanting the full prom slasher experience, throw in Prom Night, cue up the disco music, and get your axe and ski mask ready. Thank you for watching our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe to our JoBlo Horror Videos channel, tell your friends who like this sort of content, and turn on the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest videos. We're an independent company, and we appreciate all of your support.